Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to ranting and raving about board games, but usually more the latter part. Today we've got a bit of a whopper here in terms of box size, but this one is going to be a first impression speed review of Apex Legends, the board game. This is a review copy provided by Glass Cannon Unplugged, thank you very much. And people will recognise that name because, for me, certainly one of their best games that they've put out in recent years has been Frostpunk. Frostpunk, a very fun, very cool co-op that takes good care in respecting the IP of the video game and is still in my collection downstairs. Well, this one is based off Apex Legends, also a video game, and it's one of those battle royale shooters where basically a bunch of people get dropped into an arena with buildings and crates full of weapons and loot and all sorts of objects and stuff, and basically they go at it, they have special abilities, they shoot at each other, and eventually one of the teams wins.
You have to use your hands? That's like a baby's toy.
Now, I have never played Apex Legends, the video game. I don't tend to play these Battle Royale games because it's a very mixed bag as to the kind of people you meet online. You might meet some friendly people who just want to have a laugh, but then you also come across the scum of the earth at times. And so the style of play, the whole microtransaction thing that you get with these games where you got to pay money for useless digital goods, where some people, I swear, have more money than sense. And those sort of things just aren't for me. But as a board game, I wanted to see if I could just ignore the IP and get stuck into this as any other game. Just treat it as whatever IP you want to shove on it. It's a shooter. You go on a map, you collect guns, you shoot at people. I mean, how hard can it be?
Is this a trick question?
Now, if I try to explain all the rules of this game, we'll be here to next Tuesday, so I'm going to have to give you a brief overview of what you do here. And also bear in mind that this is the core set of the game I've been sent, I believe, so I don't have a ton of the Kickstarter extras. I don't have the solo and co-op expansion. That was an add-on. I've got 6 Legends in the box. I hear that there's a ton more that you got from the big box in the Kickstarter. I don't have them. I am playing with effectively what appears to be a retail copy of the game. So essentially what happens, let's take the first game set up for the moment, the basic game. It's an arena. You have 4 giant map tiles that you kit out with various types of terrain. So you've got these boxes that you essentially put together before the game starts that represent building pieces, and you stack them on top of each other to create like a 3D terrain. You've got walls of different sizes. You've got like little supply bins where all the weapons are, spawn points, and you have these plastic little shield markers around the edge of the board. The idea is that this is an arena shooter where you get dropped in the arena so big, but then as time goes on through the, I believe it's 8 rounds of the game, the shield walls close in and you'll take damage if you're outside the boundary. So it forces players to start shooting at each other in more confined spaces. So you can't have somebody just hide in the corner and go, la 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 la, can't see me. No, it's going to hurt if you try and do that. But what happens is first you will kit out your legend. So your legend is pre-built. So for example, the Wraith has specific abilities, specific stuff that she can do, but the weapons that you collect will be different. So the Wraith has essentially the portal gun and can create dimensional rifts that you can slip from point A to point B. The Bloodhound sends ravens out in order to make it easier for them to shoot other players. Don't ask me how that works in the video game, but oh cool. Gibraltar has this like big shielded fortress that it pops down so it can take cover even though it's in the open. They've all got pre-built abilities, and there's 6 of them there. You will kit out with your board a set of basic loot tokens, a basic helmet, basic shield, and the such. You've got ammo cubes, and you'll collect your ability cards and a feat deck, which is effectively kind of like an ability card deck that you can use. And the idea is that this game plays over 8 rounds in the game, and in each round, each squad is going to activate their legends, and the legends will have so many actions that they're allowed to do during each time. And then once all the legends have acted, there is a transition phase which involves, as I mentioned before, moving the shield grid a little bit further in and dealing with the ramifications of anybody who is unlucky or stupid enough to be standing outside that boundary. And then over the course of the various rounds, that boundary gets smaller and we rinse and repeat doing various actions. What kind of actions are they? Well, what do you expect from an arena shooter? You can move around the arena, jumping on top of buildings and leaping over fences and such. You can shoot your weapons, of which there's a plentiful amount to be shooting. You can interact with different objects around the table, depending on what kind of scenario it is. Typically, the main object that you'll interact with is supply bins, which are these things, which basically vomit out the various loot tokens and guns. So loot tokens are placed in these bags. This is not the correct one, but we'll find another one. So, this is a common loot bag. So these tokens will be anything from grenades to optics for your guns, stabilizers, medikits, all sorts of different things, as well as weapon cards. So I'm trying to find an example of some weapons here. Oh, there we go. There's a big deck of cards. So you could be firing a 30-30 repeater shotgun, an either auto shotgun, a charged sniper rifle, a hemlock burst AR assault rifle, a carbine, an SMG. There's all sorts of these different weapons that you might find. As with any arena shooter, you got to worry about line of sight. So line of sight is effectively taking the center point of one square, the center point of another square, but then having to deal with a lot of things like impassable objects or obstacles or things blocking your line, or how high up or low down you're shooting to determine whether it is you hit. When you try to shoot somebody, you have this deck full of aim cards, which has all these different numbers, pretty much between like 20 and 80, as well as various effects like headshot, auto hit if you're shooting downwards, that kind of thing. Like it's over Anakin, I have the high ground. And the idea is that your weapon will have stats for its optimal range, what its typical hit difficulty is, and any other modifiers like a stabilizer or optics that might influence it, or its fire rate, for example. You draw a certain amount of cards based on the fire rate, and you place them on this little track effectively up here, which has modifiers for like +5, 0, 5, -10, etc. Depending whether your gun has recoil, you'll place the cards spaced out or next door to each other. And basically what happens is that you will draw these cards at random, you will place them on the slots, the modifiers are added together, and if it's higher than your to hit difficulty, you hit, and then there may be other effects that apply depending on your gun, your weapon upgrades, etc. That's kind of like the crux of the game. You basically activate your legends to do various things to meet the objectives of the mission you're doing. So imagine it's just a typical brawl. Each player has got so many lives, and the idea is that the other team is trying to, essentially eliminate the other players enough times so that they've effectively, it's a bit like team deathmatch or deathmatch, get enough kills. But, easier said than done, because you've got cover, you've got fences, you've got the different weapons themselves, some are short range, some are long range. You're gonna have to utilize the abilities of your characters in such a way that to gain a tactical advantage and eventually win the game. And if you get bored of the first game setup, well, then they have got you covered with a match settings book, which is pretty substantial here, where it gives you all sorts of different layouts. So you can have a crash site, skull town, facility, swamps, etc. But then there's other types of modes that you can play. So you've got 2v2, you've got 3v3, you can try capture the flag. There's a few decent ways that you can play this game, and plenty enough maps for you to do. The first game is kind of like a sort of semi-tutorial session. You don't necessarily get taught the game in all the bits, but it just gives you like the sort of bare minimum of what you will face, and then all the extras that you might find in this game, they'll be added on in future maps.
Well, I like war, but I wouldn't say I love it.
So I said before that this is essentially kind of like a first impressions, first few games of Apex Legends review, because one of the problems that this game has, and it's a problem that I kind of expected when I saw the box for the first time. I mean, this is a pretty sizable box here, but this game is extremely overwhelming when you first get everything out here. I mean, you are littered with a ton of components. You can't even see everything here, but my Gigason table is entirely filled with this game, just to set up a typical 4-player game. It really does suck up the space. But even then, when you open the box, you have all these different wooden components. You've got these different dials that you've got to assemble, 6 of those. You've got different cards of different sizes. You've got all the terrain pieces. I mean, these terrain pieces in itself, you've got to put them together. You've got these tiny little things you've got to punch out and then slot together. You've got all the different trays for how to set it up. And man, it was a chore. This game is, we'll get onto some positives later, but I gotta start with a negative. This is an investment to get going. This isn't a game for casual gamers. You are going to be spending a lot of time unboxing this, storing it away, getting it built, and setting up every game. All of those things take a long time, and it is not helped by the fact that the guide in the box, when it comes to how to put everything away, this side is fine. I mean, it's a bit bare bones, but it kind of tells you how to assemble certain things, like the buildings and that. This side though, where it tells you how to put things back in the tray and put it in the box, cool, blimey, I swear I would have understood it more if you'd written the instructions in Japanese. It really was a pain trying to figure out, well, hang on a minute, that goes in what slot there? That goes in that, what token even is that? It's kind of like a small thing on it, I don't know. And it, oh man, it took forever. Yeah, such a massive array of investment time. And then on top of that, you've got these buildings here. So these buildings, you know, they seem pretty cool. I mean, look at, you know, I've got a building here, supply bin, a little fence that I've slotted into it. You know, you just take it out, and the guy's standing on it fine. The way these buildings work is basically they come in like 2 bits. You've got the outer layer, which is kind of like a folded sheet, and then you'll see that this top bit basically comes out. You fold it into like a little square rectangle, and then you stuff them in, and then this creates the 3D building. So we'll get onto the positives of this a bit later, but these are things that you need to assemble a lot of before the game does, as well as all these fences, as well as all these little fiddly, you know, little fences with these tiny little wooden discs on there, which I guarantee you, you're going to be fraying a lot of this cardboard off, because I swear these little discs do not adequately fit in these little bits. But you also then have nowhere to store these. The boxes are in there, folded, when you get the box. So they will, if you have them disassembled, it will all fit in this game. I cannot think of a greater hell than me having to assemble these boxes before every game starts on top of the long setup. No, you are going to need to assemble all these boxes and then find somewhere to store it. I don't know. Pick somewhere. You've already got to store this monstrosity, so what's another box that size to store a bucket load of these buildings? It's a bit of a hog. It's a bit of a overwhelming start, and it did sour the experience a little bit, and I think it's going to scare off a lot of people. You're going to look at this and think, oh my god, how much is in here? And that's before you've even got to learning the game. Now, the game learning experience is not too bad. I mean, I expected it to be a lot worse, especially when the rulebook is pretty dang thick. I mean, this is a thick rulebook, full of text, full of examples, is a lot to read. I mean, it's going to take you a long time. You've already got to spend ages with the component list trying to work out what everything is, but then you've got, you know, the initial selected map, you've then got, you know, legend setup, you've then got the map drop phase of just starting, and then there's all this stuff where it supposedly, I thought, was going to take you through its first game. No, what it does is that it gives you an easy map, a few little highlighted bits to make the setup as speedy as possible, but then it explains the rules and you play the game as normal. I think that this game really badly needed a full tutorial, whether it was an online video or, you know, an animated thing on Steam or something, or better still, just give me a tutorial book where literally it tells you where to set everything up, exactly the positioning, and then tells you what to do for, say, the first half of the game, perhaps. First 4 rounds, it takes you through it step by step, saying move this person to here, they're going to shoot at this person, this is how the line of sight works. I think if they had that in this game, it would have been fantastic to learn it. As such, all you have is a bucket load of text, you know, some YouTuber video playthroughs here and there, which is not really how I would learn the game personally, although the publisher Glass Cannon is doing Discord scenarios where somebody on Discord will, on Tabletop Simulator, take you through a game and teach you how to play it. That's a nice little bonus. I can't rate the game higher for it, but that's a nice touch, and it would be cool if more publishers did that. It's certainly necessary, but the rulebook is written reasonably well. I mean, there's a lot to read, a ton to read. It's going to take you a while. You are not going to just set this up and play it with your mates as a first game. You need to absorb this book. And there's a lot to absorb. I mean, you've already got the movement rules, which already have, like, you know, 6-7 different costs for how you move. Although, if you're used to tabletop miniature games like Warhammer and that, most of that's going to be fairly simplistic for you. You know, interacting with objects and, you know, getting new cards and things, you know, it's not that difficult. And so moving around the map, relatively straightforward. Then you get onto the shooting and the line of sight. Oh boy. It's not to say that they're terrible systems. They work fine, but they are easily the most complicated part of the game, and the game kind of grinds to a halt every time somebody wants to shoot their gun, because you got to go through a fairly complex set of steps to work out the shooting and the line of sight. I mean, the line of sight, as I mentioned, you start with the center point of a square and then the center point of another square. So you've got to look from a top-down view whether anything's going to block it. Well, this is 3D terrain and all sorts of stuff in the way. There's a lot of stuff that can get in the way of your line of sight, and so it's going to take you a while just to work out whether something's blocked or obstructed, and if it is, what modifier does that have? It's quite a chore to teach the line of sight, and it is a bit of a chore to operate it, but after a few games, I'm confident that you will be able to, get it in your heads. But again, that means that this is not a game for casual players. For shooting, as I said, you've got to look at your gun, you've got to see what range it is distance-wise, then you've got to work out, is that the optimal range, what's the to-hit difficulty, what's the fire rate.
3 days later.
What other effects do I have on the gun that augment this, right? Then I've got to get that little chart thing.
20 minutes later.
Flip so many cards, allocate them to a bit, apply the effects, which bits hit.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Oh, blimey, there's a lot to go through when you're just trying to shoot someone in the head. Streamlined, I've heard that word said by a couple of people reviewing this game. Streamline's not the word I would use, okay? Streamlined is more for, a nice simple game, like, maybe Seven Wonders or Cascadia. Streamlined is not the word I would use for this. I have seen much more complicated, I admit. But still, this sounds like I'm completely ragging on the game. I'm not. There's some positives that I'm now going to go into. Consider this first half of this video the negatives, and the second half the really good stuff. But it's overwhelming. There's a lot in here. It's going to take you multiple games to get this learned. It's going to take you a while to set it up, to build all this stuff. I mean, it is a bit of a chore to do it all. I mean, this would make Voidfall wince in terms of its practicalities. And even then, it's not going to be a game that you're going to get to the table very often, because you need at least a squad of 2v2. And, you're going to have to reteach most of these rules, because you're not going to be playing this game very frequently, particularly if, like me, you've got 200 plus games and this is one of them in the collection. But once you've got past that, once you've got past all those initial barriers to entry, we get on to the fun stuff of this game. And there is a decent amount of fun stuff here. You have got a lot of customization when you play every single game. Yes, you can't customize your initial legends. They've got their abilities, you've got to pick those. That's not a big deal, because I think if you could customize the abilities and that, it'd be a little bit insane. Though that does lead to a few balance issues, I think. I think some of the legends do seem a little bit too powerful compared to others, but, give them to the newer players. That's not such a bad thing. And as somebody who's played the game enough times, I'll just take the weaker ones, and then at least maybe balances that out. But I love the fact that you can customize your characters a lot with just the sheer array of items and guns that you have. I mean, you open a supply bin, and as I said, it vomits out guns, and then you get all these different guns to pick, and they've all got different numbers of slots, hit difficulty, style of play. I mean, if you've got if you're dual wielding 2 pistols, you're going to go into close combat and get up close and try and shoot the enemy that way. But then you might have a sniper rifle, you hang out at the back, and then you try and take headshots from a distance. Are you then going to give it extended magazines, optics, sniper stock, shotgun stock? Some of them come pre-built, some of them have got barrel stabilizers, some of them have got special ammo. There's all sorts of these, and this is just a small amount of them. I mean, the deck is, oh god, let me go find it. Here we go. This is the deck of guns.
Lots of guns.
This is seriously a lot of stuff that you can do, and this is just the guns. You've then got all the loot tokens. So you've got 3 bags. I mean, this is a particular Legends bag, but you've got common, you've got another bag for epic, another bag for rare, loot tokens. And so these can be, special types of upgrades and all sorts of grenades and things like that. So there's a lot of ways that, even though I have taken the Wraith and I have the Dimensional Rift portal gun, yes, that is fixed in stone, but then you've got all sorts of cool ways that you can turn yourself into a sniper, close combat, munchkin, shotgun, or whatever. And I like that. It does make you feel very different each game. So I can play a different style of character, and I'm not pigeonholed exactly into this type of character just because I chose the Wraith. It's perfectly fine to choose whatever weapon style you think is best. Visual presence wise, I mentioned that it is a bit of a chore having to assemble a ton of these things, and certainly you're going to be fraying the cardboard on some of this stuff. I mean, I know you probably got miniatures in the big box edition, but whatever, I don't need miniatures. I think the cardboard standees are fine. I mean, these things are good. They've got artwork and they're, you know, relatively thick and sturdy. It's just these titchy little ruddy discs that you got to put on these little gateway things, and that they're annoying because they just do not fit as smoothly as they would like. These, again, a bit of a chore to put together because they fold. You've got to like fold the flaps down so that you can put the box in, but those flaps don't stay down, so you're trying to force feed it in, and it's a pain. But once it's assembled, as long as you've got the storage space for it, these are a nice, you know, cheapish, relatively, way to create 3D terrain. And when you've got the whole thing set up, it does create a good amount of visual presence. People will look past and think, oh, cool, blimey, is this something from Games Workshop or something? It's like, nope, it's just a board game that happens to have 3D terrain and does it quite well. I mean, even just the initial map has got multiple stories of, you know, different buildings that you can have, and they're going to have their own sort of, you know, different placements and supply bins and walls stuck everywhere. It's going to create a very, you know, cool map. And because it's relatively easy to go up and down like different levels with your movement, it doesn't feel like, oh, it's going to take me 10 years to get to that building and do anything. No, you'll get there relatively quickly, and you know, you think, well, he's all the way at the top, what am I supposed to do? Jump and jump. There you go. It might take you a little few extra movement points, but you know, at least it's not going to take you forever to get there. And it is very much a kind of, unless you've got something like a sniper rifle, you are very much firing on the move a lot of the time. But yeah, components wise, there's a lot in here. The box is huge. You've got 6 legends. You're getting your money's worth in terms of bits, as overwhelming as it is to try and assemble all those wretched bits. You know, it did give me a bit of a brain aneurysm trying to do it the first time.
Good as new.
Oh! As much as I rag on the amount of steps that you got to go through to shoot a weapon, the system is pretty cool once you've got it in your head how it works. You know, I like this aim deck with the chart, you know, based on all the different effects that your gun has, working out whether you can hit the opponent. You know, multiple cards for multiple bullets, but also these auto effects for, like, you know, it will not work if there's a wall in the way. It will automatically hit no matter what the number is if it's lower elevation. This will deal a headshot if it hits. You know, these little things are nice, and it kind of is something that you would experience in the video game when you're shooting around. You know, you might just get that lucky headshot or something that goes straight through the wall. Well, this is the kind of deck that, you know, simulates that nicely. But overall, it's kind of what you'd expect from most of these arena shooter games. You know, you go around, you interact with items, you shoot at the opponent, and it's a tactical skirmish game. It's not reinventing the wheel per se, but it is, you know, sticking fairly, as far as I can tell, fairly true to the IP it's based on, and giving you what feels like a very fast and fluid game, minus the stop and start motion of dealing with the shooting and the line of sight until you get used to it. So there's some bad, there's some good. Who is this game for? It's definitely not for the casual gamer. You need to know going in that this is a big box with a ton of stuff in it, and with, you know, a massive investment in unboxing and storage and everything that, you know, all of it is going to be quite overwhelming for the casual gamer, right? So this is more for die-hard people who either love Apex Legends or just love these types of, you know, arena shooter, skirmish, tabletop games where you get a bunch of people line of sight and try and shoot people, you know. And I was into those more as a kid, you know, more as a teenager. I'm less keen on them now, but, you know, these games can still provide a bit of a laugh now and again. I do love the customization options that this leads to, with all the guns and stuff that you can find during the missions. That is cool. 6 legends is a decent amount of legends for a core box. I don't think you really need like 20 legends, you know, to really get, you know, to get the most out of this game, even though I'm sure the stretch goals probably did give you a ton more. You know, there's plenty enough in here to give you your money's worth for a long while if this is a game you're going to play. But you're not going to get it to the table very often. I mean, this needs 2v2 or 3v3 at all times. It doesn't come with a solo co-op mode. That's an expansion in the Kickstarter. And if there's one thing that I know for sure from these types of games, it's that solo modes don't work in these types of things. You cannot automate the unpredictability of a tactical skirmish game. It just doesn't work. So I've no interest in that. So it's going to be hard for you to find the players. It's going to be hard for you to get it to the table. You're going to be playing this for at least a good couple of hours, if not longer, per game. You know, so you might be able to squeeze it into a game night, but that's a good couple of hours to play it, let alone teaching it, let alone actually trying to set the game up, which I swear will take you a good half hour at least to do it, especially if you're doing it by yourself, which you probably will be because nobody else will have any clue what it is you're doing. So, you know, for someone like me with 200 games, this is just one that will never hit the table, which is why I've had to do kind of like a first impressions, like first few games review of it, because, you know, to play it as many times as I normally would for a full review is just practically an impossibility. It's just not gonna happen. And, you know, you need to know that going in. It's a lot of money, it's not a cheap game. It's a lot of investment in time and cash, as I just said, and you're going to need the players to play it with. This is not something that you can just casually bring to a game night and say, hey everybody, who fancies a game of Apex Legends? You've got to plan this out, you've got to play at conventions, you know, that's kind of the way it is. And if you don't fit into that kind of category, this game ain't for you. Overall, with the impracticalities in mind, the sheer investment, the fact that it could have been made a bit easier to help learn the game, especially when the rulebook doesn't, you know, it's a decent enough rule book, but you really needed like a first game guided tutorial in this. You need, you know, you're going to scare off a lot of people who pick this box up and see all the bits in it. It's not for casual gamers. It's not even for casual people who are into shoot 'em ups online. You know, this is going to require somebody to really absorb the rules to this, to really like spend all the time building and storing all this, which believe me, as I said, that gave me a brain aneurysm trying to do it. It's got a lot of issues on that front. But that being said, once you get past those issues, you are left with a very fast-paced, very faithful style of arena shooter game with a lot of gun customization, which is certainly, I think, the highlight of the game and probably the thing it needed to get right. The fact that you can have such varied gunplay in this. You know, that sort of stuff is really cool, and it has the visual presence to boot. I give it overall a 7 out of 10. A good game, and I do recommend it for those who are really into this style of game. I don't recommend it for anybody who hasn't really tried it, who thinks that this box might be a bit too big, that the price might be too much, or if the whole thing I've said about the investment you need to put into it time-wise is a bit much for you. Then stay away. I don't think you're going to enjoy it, and certainly, as I said, you'll get a brain aneurysm at first. But for those die-hard people who really are into this kind of thing, I think you're going to find a lot to like here, and it's one that I would recommend.
That's definitely you.
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Don't forget to check out all the other content I've been doing. I've been reviewing games such as Wondrous Creatures and Life of the Amazonia by Bad Comic Games lately, so by all means check out those. Let me know your thoughts on this game. Have you played a lot of these types of arena shooters on tabletop form before? Have you played the video game? Do you think it would actively, faithfully represent the video game? Bear in mind, I've not even touched it and never will. You know, do you find the investment of time to build everything, to unbox it, to get the rules done, to set up? Do you think it's all worth it, or did it scare you off and make you think, oh, I don't know, this is a little bit too much for my liking? Be interesting to know your thoughts. So until next time, remember, regardless of whether you have a spare warehouse to store all the terrain for this, it's still only a game. It's just a rather big game. So take care. Bye for now.